Bang! Neves Knives. I'm Jared. My lovely wife Kara is at work. And in this video, we are doing the full review on the Concept Accipiter. This is a Kim Ning design. I've loved Kim Ning designs since he was at Kaiser. I've had many of them. So I want to thank Concept for sending me a few of their knives to test and review. Now, I will say that you can find their knives at a few places, including Blade HQ. They have many different knives, many different designs, and a lot of different price points. So you will find a lot of different styles and different sizes of knives made by Concept. But let's get into the review on this one. So this knife's overall length is 8 1/4 with a 3.5 inch blade. Here are some very quick size comparisons. The Kershaw Bare Knuckle, great size comparison. They are basically exactly the same size. Next we have the Spyderco Paramilitary 2 or PM2, which is also basically the exact same size. Great size comparison there. And then here is the Artisan Centauri. This is the big one. Also a great size comparison. And then here is another one of Concept's knives. The Helix, the Concept Helix, which is a bit bigger than the Accipiter, and the review on this one is coming soon. And here is the Benchmade Bug Out, just to show you something a little bit smaller. A lot of people know this knife. You can see it is a full-size knife. Let's start off with the sharpening that I did on it. Let's first take a look at its factory edge. It did have a very good factory edge, and we'll talk more about its factory edge here in a minute and why I sharpened it, but it did have a nice factory edge. Looked really good, nice and clean, very sharp. But I did want to sharpen it on my Veneve Diamond Stones. Veneve Diamond Stones are basically diamonds infused into a matrix of basically a resin. And I didn't want to go into a too high of a grit, but I started with my first stone, which is 160/125 grit. Then I moved to the 100/80 grit, and I finished off with a 50/40 grit, which basically, in my opinion, is about 1200 grit. I normally don't go that high with this, with S35VN, because this is S35VN blade steel. I normally like to keep it around 600 grit, but I did, and I could have taken it a little bit higher, but I kept it right where it's at now. Now, I will say that I did have not a big issue or anything, but it has a tiny recurve towards the heel of the blade, and we'll talk more about that here in a second. But I basically had to kind of ride the edge of the stone, the corner of the stone, as I was sharpening, to make sure I got in close to the belly. See, most of the blade is getting hit except for a little part right near the heel, basically in the middle of the blade. So pretty much right here wasn't getting hit with every pass. I did, like I said, I had to kind of ride the corner of the stone a little bit to make sure I hit it right there. It wasn't too hard to get it. You can still get it on a flat stone. It's not that big of a deal. So after finishing on my 50/40 grit Veneve Diamond Stone, I did move on to my leather strop with Veneve Compound. I used the yellow compound. Not all compounds, or not all yellow compounds, are the same. So this is just the stuff that Veneve has. I think it's 3/2 micron. Anyways, stropped up very nicely. And then I tested the edge on some paper. It sliced through paper really nice, very sharp edge. And because I'm a bit of a nutcase, after sharpening, or after cutting some of the paper, I went back and hit it on the strop a couple times. Not that I needed to, but I guess I have some serious issues. Now let's get into how it cuts, because it does cut very well. So choked up pretty close to the blade, because you can, since this is a front flipper, you don't have a flipper getting in the way of you using the top of the knife. So in that grip, cuts very, very well. No problems there. It does go through materials pretty nicely, and we'll talk about the geometry here in just a second, but it has pretty decent geometry, so it cuts very well. And then choked back a little bit, basically in the grip that you use in most knives. It also cuts very well. The belly of the knife slices very clean. No problems with cutting. It cut very well. And it goes through cardboard pretty good. Even in push cuts, the push cuts were also very, very nice. Nice clean cuts. Not too big of an issue. Then moving on to some utility cuts. You know, this knife isn't really for utility cuts, but it did cut just fine. I had to lift it up just a little bit to really get the tip, but you can use basically the top portion of the belly with the tip kind of combined, and it does work just fine. You can get by with doing utility cuts if you have to. It's not made for that, but you can definitely get by with doing it, and it works just fine. You do have a lot of leverage in the handle of this knife, so it winds up working to your benefit, basically, with the leverage and the blade combined. You know, I forgot to say that right after sharpening, I did pull out my jeweler's loop. I have a 40-time magnification jeweler's loop that I pulled out, and I looked at my edge and checked it really good. So let's take a look at that. The edge looks very nice. The grip pattern is very clean, nice, a very flat edge, and it did, like I said, it sharpened up really nice. And you can see the grip pattern is really uniform. It all goes in the direction I want it to. No problems with sharpening and no problems with the edge after sharpening, for the most part. I do have one little issue I want to talk about here in a second when we get to the bad, but it did sharpen up just fine. But we'll get to that stuff here in a second. So let's take a closer look at this knife. Like I said, it has S35 VN blade steel, drop point blade, flat ground edge, which gets down to about 18 thousandths behind the edge on my calipers. So pretty good thickness. The spine thickness is not overly thick, so the geometry winds up working out really good for cutting. Now the spine is nice and crowned. Very, very nice there. It feels very comfortable. No jimping on the spine, but it's not necessary, except for the jimping that comes from the front flipper. That's the jimping that you have on the spine, but you don't really hold the knife back there, and it doesn't really give you much traction. The tip is acute, but yet nice and strong. So, like I said, the utility cuts do work really good. And the edge retention on this thing with the factory edge did great. I honestly didn't even have to sharpen it. I just did for the video, and because I wanted to see how it's sharpened and how this choil was going to be and everything else. But the heat treat on this thing seems pretty good. I can't say for certain, but you know, if I had to say, you know, if I had to put money on it, I would say it's pretty decent, because, you know, just the edge retention was really good, and yeah, and the way it felt on the stone was really nice. So yeah, it seemed like it was pretty good. Now the handle is in titanium, and it has a micarta slab. Now this does come in other versions, other variations. I think they have Damascus and carbon fiber. I chose the green micarta. I wanted to look at some more of their micarta because, you know, I like micarta a lot. So, you know, some companies have better or worse micarta. I wasn't very impressed with the micarta on the Little Main Street. Other people might be. Just personally, I wasn't. But this micarta I am definitely happier with. It is a bit better quality. and it looks really good. And I think it's going to age very well with the knife, and it'll get a lot darker. Now on the other side, it is just plain titanium. And then the back spacer, you have a titanium back spacer with a hidden lanyard loop. Great place to put the lanyard loop. The only problem is that it might, if you do have a I'm not going to say this is a bad thing. I'm just saying if you do like lanyards, you know, I'm not sure how it would sit in your hand because it might push right into your hand. I'm not sure. I don't use a lanyard. So, you know, I'm not really going to speak about how that would operate, but it looks like it might get in the way if you did have a lanyard on it because your hand goes there, or at least mine does. But regardless, like I said, I didn't put a lanyard on it, so I don't know. Let's look at this blade. So like I was saying before, there's a slight bit of recurve right here. It's hard to see, but if you really look, after sharpening, it did take it out a little bit. So in all reality, like I said, no problems sharpening on a flat stone. I want to say that again. No problems sharpening on a flat stone. So don't think that it's going to be an issue or that you need little round stones or anything like that. I had no problems. But it just took a few extra passes to make sure I hit inside that belly. And, you know, like I said, I kind of rode the corner of the stone just a little bit. Not a lot. It was really no issue. And it did sharpen up just fine. Now, the ergos are amazing. I mean, this thing just feels so comfortable in the hand. I mean, it's really, really good. One, it's pretty neutral in a way. You know, it does have a nice straight spine right there, and then it has a taper right here. So that little taper kind of sits nestled right in your hand. Real nice. So the grip and the width right here, the width and the depth, the thickness and the depth is very, very nice for my hand. You do have this little cutout right here for your finger. And then since it is a front flipper, you can take advantage of this spot right there for push cuts or just to get nice and close to the blade. And it's still extremely comfortable. The micarta just adds to the nice texture and nice feeling of this titanium. It is not textured titanium in any way, but it just adds to the great ergos, and the crown spine makes it feel good in the hand also. Now let's get to the action. So the action is really nice. So this does have ceramic bearings, and they have a stainless steel washer that prevents the ceramic bearings from riding the titanium, which is really good. That's awesome. And it also puts a little racetrack for them to spin around right here, which adds to this amazing action. So the jimping on the front flipper is done very, very well. Works really good. Very easy to front flip. If you like front flippers, you will really like the action on this one. It's very easy, and it is a large knife. Now, the way I like to front flip is a lot of people, they grip the knife really tight and then they pow. I don't do that. I let it just gently rest in my hand. Okay, so it's gently in my hand. I'm not squeezing it at all, because when I go like this, you know, to break the detent, what I'm basically doing is using these fingers to kind of just put a little pressure by the clip. It kind of just hooks it from flipping out of my hand. And then most of the pressure pushes right here on the palm. So you're holding it and just very gently holding it. And then put pressure, put your finger up to the front flipper. Just sit it there. Just rest it there. Put some pressure, not enough to break the detent, not enough to do that, just enough pressure to not do that. Then when you're ready, go all the way over to here. Set it there, a little bit of pressure, then when you're ready, break it and go all the way. As soon as you break that detent, you want to make sure you continue. You don't want to break it and then sit it there and then go like this. You can do that if you want to slow roll it, which you can easily do. As you can see, you can easily slow roll it. That would be slow rolling a front flipper. But if you want it to go the whole way, you got to break the detent and then put your finger all the way, because otherwise your finger right here is just going to stop it. So you got to get it out of the way right away. And it's very, very easy. Now, I can also hit it like this, and I'm not good at doing those, but you see it there. I did do it. The jimping is just done so well, so it's very easy. You can use the side of your thumb. You can use the top of your thumb. Ooh, that was my fault. Dang it. You can use the side of your thumb. You can use the top of your thumb. You can do it anyway. And then if you're really not good at it, you can always break the detent and do a little wrist pop, which kind of just helps it carry the weight, but you absolutely need no wrist with this knife. Very clean. Now, the lock bar is very easy access. You can see you have lots of access right there. Very comfortable. And if you zoom in here, you'll see there's a tiny, tiny bit of texturing right here. It's very light, but you can kind of see it. And that adds to, I guess the grip of that. So very easy to hit that lock bar. Nice, good access. You want to make sure your finger's not holding it right there, because otherwise it won't drop, because that's the front flipper. So just either raise it up, hold it like that, or hold it down, however you got to do it. Hit the lock bar, and it falls down. The detent is nice and early. Love to see that, because you have two choices here. You can stop it early right here by stopping this part, and it's still past the detent, which is really nice because the detent is so early right there, so it's easy to get past it. Or you can let it go all the way down and hit your nail. And you see how I'm blocking the path of the blade with my nail, and it'll just hit my nail and then finish it off. Now let's look at the drop. When you drop it, it's very, very smooth. It's almost false shut action, not quite false shut action. It's more luxurious than that. It's got a subtle drop that just slowly drops the whole way, but it does drop the entire way with very little effort. Nice centering, beautiful centering. I can also slow roll mine. Now the detent is pretty good, but if I keep my fingers off the lock bar, I can push right on the logo and roll it out. It feels very nice, actually, like just the roll of it. The lockup is really secure, and I don't have to do the pinch if I don't want to. I can just slow roll it out. So very, very, I can't flick it or anything like that, but very, very, it feels very, very, just high quality. The action and the lockup and the smoothness, very, very nice. These things do, when you take them apart, they go right back together very easily, and they're very easy to take apart and put back together. They don't have a D-shaped pivot, so you do have to use a bit on both sides to take it apart. And it does have a stainless steel or a steel lock bar insert. You can see the screw right there, and the detent ball right there, and then it has an over travel stop. Now, one thing I like to see is that they use blue Loctite, which is awesome, because then that means they want you to maintain your own knife. When you use red Loctite, it locks you out of the knife, it strips screws, and it just becomes a horrible situation. Thank you, Concept, for using blue Loctite. That makes it to where people can maintain their tools. Now, lots of great things about this knife, right? So many great things. What are some bad things? So let's get into the first one. The first one is this choil area. This choil area is, it's not a great sharpening choil. I wish they would have. Okay, so you see it went just fine, right? There's a little tiny smile. There's a little tiny smile. There's a little tiny smile right there. But not bad. It's not bad. But I only did one sharpening. So it's not the best sharpening choil. They didn't really give you too much. You see the plunge grind goes all the way to right there. I'm literally, my top of my edge is right on the bottom of the plunge grind. You see the light, how it reflects right there? That's because this tapers down to the edge. Now, it would have been better if this was just a little deeper, or if this edge started just a little bit farther up, because you want to be away from the plunge grind so that people can sharpen it, and then they can get a few sharpenings out of it before hitting the plunge grind. You don't want the first sharpening to hit the plunge grind, because then, you know, it's not set up for future sharpenings. So that is something I would have liked to see done a little bit better. Another thing is they do use T6s. I don't like T6s. This is a little bit more expensive of a knife. I expect them to use T8s at this point. Now, these are very, very good quality screws, so I give them credit for the quality screws, but T8s, guys, just use T8s. Stop using T6s. T6s strip out very easily, and yeah. Now, one more thing, or another thing, is that the clip. So the clip does not work very well. If you look at the way it sits, there's no ramp. It's like hitting a wall. Maybe this will work good on slacks, and what I mean is basically like office pants or dress pants. But if you look for jeans, it's just like hitting a wall. And so putting it in and out of the pocket, you got to really push over the seam of your pants. Pulling the knife out of your pocket works just fine, but putting it in is not good, and it'll shred your pockets. It will start destroying your pockets after a while. It just needs a little bit better of a ramp. There's no ramp. Just because there's a little scoop right there, that's not a ramp. A ramp is a taper so that your pants squeeze under the pocket clip. So I would have liked to have seen that done better. Now, it is not a reversible clip, and it is solid. It only uses one screw. That can lead to movement if the screw backs out. So, you know, this might, you know, if it starts backing out, you're going to want to make sure you keep Loctite in that screw. You know, just like all screws, you want to make sure you keep blue Loctite. But also, it's not inset. It's just on top of the titanium. So that also creates more problems for pocket clips shifting. Now, I'm not saying this ever shifted. This one's solid. It's on there solid. But that's usually what tends to happen with clips that are just on the surface, because they're just tightened down by the screw and they're not inset in the titanium. And I'm talking about this square part right here being inside, just like a little cutout on the the surface for the clip to push down into and then screw in. So, okay. Now, back to some good things. I do like that they did not put the stop pin right here. It is an internal stop pin, which means it, the stop pin is on the knife itself. I do like to see that. It adds to the strength from side to side. And also, this thing has no play at all. It's rock solid. This thing is very, very solid. And it's super smooth. So for being so solid, this thing is very, very smooth. But I'm thankful that they didn't put a stop pin right there, because now in the future, if I do need to add in another sharpening choil or a deeper one, I can. It's not that big of an issue. So that's a plus in my opinion. I like the quality, the way it feels. It feels like good quality. You feel like you have an expensive knife in your hand, which it is. I mean, this is a $180 to $200 knife. Now, if you get the one with the Damascus inlay, it's even more expensive. But this is, basically about a $190 knife, so it's not cheap, but it feels like a $200+ knife. It does. It really does. Just the way, not only the way it's contoured and how soft all these parts are, you could tell they put in work there, but just the smoothness of the action and you know, Kim Ning definitely has great designs, and I've always liked his designs. I always liked his simplistic designs that just feel and seem like they are made to use, and they are a knife. You know, sometimes knives get pretty outrageous, and you can tell this one's it's meant to use. To, you know, I do wish, my biggest issue with it is the sharpening choil. I wish was deeper and left just some meat on the bones, and the clip. That's my biggest issues. But very, very nice knife. Thank you, Concept, for letting me review this knife, and for yeah, willing to put your knife through testing, because that's where it boils down to, how it works in the real world. It's not about what it looks like and just, you know, looking at a picture of it and saying, oh man, it looks nice. It's about, how does it perform? How does it sharpen? How does it cut? How does it work? How does it feel in the hand? And what it works and looks like in the real life. So I love you guys. Thank you guys for watching. Peace.